Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Happy Juneteenth weekend. All right. Okay, we're going to get started. Welcome, everyone, to the opening program for the Woods Before Sunrise, Environment and Place in New Mexico's Black Contemporary. My name is Elizabeth Becker, and I am the Curator of Education here at the museum. This exhibition, co-curated by Nikesha and William Gassaway, brings together the work of 9 contemporary artists who explore themes of sustainability, cultural history, and personal relationships to the natural world through their artwork. We are delighted to have with us today the exhibition's co-curators, along with participating artists Jakia Fuller and Paula Wilson, for a conversation about the exhibition's themes and their experiences and the ideas that shape their work. So again, thank you all for joining us. It is now my pleasure to turn it over to the co-curators, artists Nikesha and Dr. William Gassaway, the assistant curator here at the museum. Thank you.
Hi, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We had a beautiful soft opening yesterday, and it's been just incredible to see even folks coming back and starting to feel the excitement of this show. We are very excited to be here and to present this work for you. My name is Nikesha. I am co-curator of the show and also an artist in the show, and this is William Gassaway. This show, The Woods Before Sunrise, as was introduced, is a show that is very close to my heart and really, I think, touches on an incredibly important aspect of our relationship here in New Mexico. New Mexico, which is often spoken of as a tricultural state, often neglects the contribution, relationship, and experience of Black New Mexicans. So we wanted to really gather together brilliant artists who are working with the environment, who are looking at the land and our place in it here in New Mexico in unique and different ways. We are very excited to introduce each of the artists, but I'll get William in here on the mic as well.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Nikesha. Thank you all for being here today. It's wonderful to see you. So the occasion for this exhibition is the summer solstice, which I believe is technically taking place at 2:24 a.m. Tomorrow. But this exhibition is the third and final in a series of environmentally themed shows here at the Albuquerque Museum, each of which have opened 1 year apart on the summer solstice, and each is looking at the environment through a different lens. In this case, we are looking at it through the work of these 9 artists that make up The Woods Before Sunrise. I wanted to just, and I should say too that we have actually, for those of you who did not catch any of these previous catalogs or shows, we have packaged all 3 of them together in the store, available now. They're all available individually and as a collector's set, which we're titling collectively the Solstice Series. So be sure to check that out in the store afterward. And after today's event, Nikesha and I will also be signing catalogs if you're interested in having yours. All right, so the title of this exhibition actually comes from a George Washington Carver quote. He once said that there is nothing as beautiful as the loveliness of the woods before sunrise. For those of you who don't know, George Washington Carver was perhaps the most important agricultural scientist of the late 19th century and early 20th century here in the U.S. He was born sometime in the early 1960s. Even he wasn't exactly sure because slavery had not been abolished in Missouri until 1865. And he was kidnapped as an infant along with his sister and his mother and sold into a different situation in Kentucky, different enslavement, where he was purchased and then purchased back by his original enslaver, Moses Carver, and just brought back to Missouri. And after slavery was abolished, he was raised by Moses Carver and his wife as their own child, along with his older brother, James. And in that household, we're taught the importance of education, of reading, mathematics, and it inspired the young George, who until that time went by Carver's George, and only later as George Carver. Inspired him to pursue his education, to get his diploma from school in Minneapolis, and eventually to try to enroll in school in Kansas, where he was accepted and then denied entry once he turned up and they discovered that he was black. He did not accept that defeat and instead decided to keep pushing and homesteaded a property where he raised a series of crops and made a name for himself that way and earned income that way, and through that was able to get a loan from the bank for $300 to continue to pursue his education, and enrolled at the University of Iowa, where he took art classes and excelled among his peers for his botanical drawings. Really just a polymath, someone who took as easily to science as he did to art, and was recognized by his teachers for both, and went on to earn his bachelor's in agricultural sciences from the University of Iowa, then his master's of science, and became the first African-American member of the faculty at that university. Following that, he was recruited by Booker T. Washington at Tuskegee University to become a professor of agricultural sciences, where he taught for the next 47 years. What an incredible life. Multiple lives lived in that one lifetime. I can think of no better role model, no better lodestar for this exhibition than that gentleman, and really delighted to be able to uplift his voice through the title of this exhibition. I want to also recognize, Nikesha and I both want to recognize an inspirational text for this exhibition, which is Dr. Carolyn Finney's book, Black Faces, White Spaces, Reimagining the Relationship of African Americans to the Great Outdoors. If you've not read this book, I highly recommend it. It was seminal in the ideation of this show, and in fact, we have invited Dr. Finney to come speak here at the Albuquerque Museum on Saturday, September 12th. So if you'd like to come back and join us, that will be a lovely conversation with a really powerful author.
Some of the themes that come up in this show, illustrated here in the slide, but also just the things that were really important to us as we were building this work was one, like William said, this place that Carolyn Finney, speaks about is this absence, really, of the relationship, of the image, and of the experience of Black Americans in the outdoors, in leisure, in rest, in recreation. And that's something that George Carver also brings up a lot, is this place that, Black Americans, their relationship to the soil, their relationship to the land, is so wrought with such thick layers of history, that the reclaiming of that relationship is actually a source of power and a source of inspiration and fortitude that we need to remember. The act of remembering and becoming in deep relationship to the land and feeling comfortable in the land is an incredibly important aspect that is something that we wanted to highlight in this work. Each of the artists that we are bringing all see, experience, and are showing a lens of intimacy, relationship, presence, and a dynamic conversation with the environment around them, in particular this environment here in the Southwest. The artists that we are featuring, all of them brilliant masters in their field. We have Ron Adams, Noah Barnett, Nikesha Breeze, Maurice Burns, Karsten Creighton, Jakia Fuller, Jackie Mitchell-Edwards, Rainwich Pritchett, and Paula Wilson, each of which I am so excited for you to see in this exhibition.
To orient you within our state here and where each of our artists hail from, we created this small map here. And in a moment, Nikesha is going to walk us through just a representative example from each artist. I hope that some of you have already had a chance to go through the gallery and have seen the show with your own eyes, or will do so after this. The galleries will stay open until 5 p.m. today. Before we get into the other artists and into our conversation today, I do want to just acknowledge some of my colleagues who were instrumental in helping us to pull this exhibition together. In particular, I want to thank and acknowledge our staff members in collections, Ellen Castrone, Keith Lee, Mira Christopher, Patrick Turk, Allison Krenz, Katrina Chiapos, Scott Kirchow, and Nate Brunt. In our exhibitions and design team, Stephen Hutchins and Jen Montano. With education, Elizabeth Becker, who you heard from earlier, and Diana Delgado. And in our leadership, Alicia Romero, head curator and curator of history, Bibi Beloira, our assistant director here at the museum, and Andrew Connors, the director of the museum. And last but not least, I want to really thank and applaud the work of my curatorial assistant, Audrey Bornman, for everything that she did to help us pull this exhibition together. That really was essential labor and a beautiful bit of research that she conducted, as well as writing for the catalog. So do pick up a copy of that catalog. You'll see all these folks' names again, and Nikesha's beautiful essay, "The Land is Not Neutral."
Great. So I'm just going to kind of quickly walk us through so we can get to our conversation today, each of the artists in the show. Rain Witt Pritchett, a phenomenal and brilliant printmaker. This is a serigraph on paper that I really encourage you to look closely at. 17 layers of very detailed, color-specific printing. Phenomenal work. Ron Adams, master printer, here in, oh, it was in Santa Fe, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, in Santa Fe. Again, phenomenal work. We have both lithograph prints as well as drawings by Ron Adams. Maurice Burns, who has recently passed. We are so honored to have Maurice's phenomenal oil on canvas, large-scale paintings, working through so many layers of themes from North Africa to the Southwest to indigenous conversations. Brilliant work. Karsten Creighton, here from Albuquerque, another phenomenal collage artist, printmaker, and storyteller with their work. We have both lithograph works as well as large-scale collage and paintings. Jackie Mitchell-Edwards, who is here in person today. We're so happy to have. We have some of Jackie's phenomenal large-scale oil paintings on linen, as well as her ritual objects and sculptural works. Noah Barnett, so excited for you all to see a large 70-foot long site-specific mural painted in the museum space. And you may have seen Noah's work around town. He also has a solo show currently here in Albuquerque. And as I introduce these artists, I'd like them actually to come up on stage. We have Paula Wilson. Let's give a round of applause for Paula. Many of you have seen her brilliant work for many years throughout this region and across the world. Her work we are so honored to have in this exhibition. We'll talk more about your practice as we go. And Jakia Fuller. Jakia is a phenomenal artist, fashion designer, curator, and brilliant community organizer. We're so pleased to have Jakia's works on paper for the first time installed here at the Albuquerque Museum. So again, Jakia. Yay. And last but not least, myself, Nikesha Breeze. I have 2 sculptural installations in the space, and as you know, I've co-curated the show. I'm excited to be in conversation today.
Testing. Can you hear me? There we go. Testing. All right. Well, thank you, Paula and Jakia, for being here with us today. You both have had a chance to go through the show. Why don't we start off with your initial reactions to what you saw? Yeah.
Okay, well, hi. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. It's wonderful to see your beautiful faces for this conversation, and I hope you all are enjoying the show. And then if you haven't seen it yet, you're going to be in for a real treat, which goes to my first impressions of the show. I got to go to the walkthrough yesterday, and yeah, it was just like really breathtaking and beautiful to experience all of our work together. I was still like fangirling. I'm not gonna lie, there are some very heavyweights in this show, and I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, these are some like really like powerful, like influential and dynamic artists, and I'm just like, my work's in this show. I was like, oh wow, it's okay. But no, it's just really beautiful how like all the works are in conversation with one another. Like there is a moment where there's like all these cacti, which is like really fantastic from like different artists, and you're able to see like their different perspectives and like what it is that they are addressing from like our experience with cacti, to like there are moments of like we're not just like focusing just on New Mexico, but just like how so many of us are like there are so many roads to and from New Mexico, and it's very like clear and present in this exhibition from like across like the oceans to like different states, and so it's just really beautiful to see how it all came together. So yeah.
As I kind of introduced in the beginning, this show is so much about our intimate relationships with the land. And in particular here in New Mexico, that is already a kind of interesting conversation. You know, I spoke about it in my essay, The Land is Not Neutral, where, you know, as Black bodies and Black people here, we are settlers here on this land. This is indigenous land. And also, like the agency and the relationship that we have is as important, not as important, but is incredibly important as well. And so my question kind of to start is about that. What is you as artists invited in the show and as Black people here, what is your relationship to this land? How did you come here? How did you choose to be here, and how do you sustain here inside the complexity?
Yeah, thank you. And just echoing, thank you everyone for being here. So many familiar faces and people coming from Carrizozo as well, which I know in the map was number 9, but didn't have the name Carrizozo on it, you know, so it's a small, no, it's all good, it's all good. But as, you know, in a way to answer your question, like that place of being in a town of less than 1,000 people has really been such a generative space to make work and to feel that I have the land, you know, around me in 360, and then also the time and space to make work. And I appreciate you kind of talking about the paths that we all come to be here, and looking at the list of artists. I mean, Jakia was born in El Paso, but I think everyone else was born in another, was not born in the state. Is that correct? Karsten and Noah are from here. So, I mean, and one thing that stood out to me in the exhibition is how much figuration there is. Even if you're looking at Noel's and your work, like the plants, animals, insects, they have a kind of agency, or almost are like a protagonist, if you will. Like there's really a kind of respect for our bodies in the land. And I think that there's something about, as Black artists, like we're not so interested in this idea that there's this beautiful vista that's empty, you know, and let's just take a look at it and enjoy that in some way that, you know, has this kind of like manifest destiny relationship to it. Instead, we are part of the land. And so that the fact that there's so many kind of bodies in the show, and that there's all these like relationships that are at work and given its full kind of spectrum of experience, I think is just so powerful.
Okay, so this is how I came here. So in 2006, we came to visit my aunt and my cousins and my uncle from Detroit, Michigan. And then my dad was like looking around, he had his hand on his hip, and he was like, oh, this is very nice, it's very nice. And I was like, okay, it's not like we're ever coming back because, we're originally from Detroit, Michigan. So I was like, this is okay. And then we go back to Detroit, and then my dad's like, in a year, we moved to New Mexico. And I was like, no. And then a year later, we moved to New Mexico. My parents lovingly put us in a van, and we drove down to New Mexico. I have 4 brothers and a sister, and so we just drove straight down. And there was a moment of hysteria, of laughing, and they're just like, what are you laughing about? And I was like, well, everything's brown, the ground is brown, the mountains are brown, we're brown, everything's brown. And that's kind of my first introduction of we're here for real in New Mexico. And since then, it's been I would say it's been a very healing relationship here in New Mexico. And I feel like whenever people do come here, it's whatever brought you here, it brought you here for a reason, and you're gonna get what you need to get. And so I feel like the vast sky, the landscape, it's all these things that we actually need that we didn't really realize that we needed or wanted. So even when I fly out and come back, I'm just I know I'm home, and I see the mountains, and I'm like, thank goodness, we're finally back, right? So yeah, that's kind of how I got here to New Mexico, and from that, it's just had me develop more of an appreciation to the outdoors. I wouldn't say that I'm the most oh my gosh, let's go camping. I'm not that person. I'll never be that person. But I do have I will say I've developed more of a profound respect and appreciation for the environment here. So yeah.
I love that so much, and I love all of our journeys and the places that we have found that sense of rootedness and home. You in Carrizozo, and here in this deeper desert. I'm from the northern area, or live there. I've been living in Taos for 26 years. I moved to Taos in 1999, and I was just a young kid with a bike and a backpack. I never even knew how to drive. I got just dropped off in this town, and I was like, okay. Literally, I fell in love with it, and found my way there, and my relationships there, and raised my family there. And it took me 15 years or 20 years. I started searching deeper into my family, because there was this place where I was like, I can't leave this place. I was so rooted to New Mexico. It just felt so connected to my soul in a way. The land, the air, the sky, everything was right. And then I started searching my family history and found that I was actually could trace my family to New Mexico in the 1890s. That my family were some of the first settlers of this small town called Blackdom, New Mexico, south of Roswell. The original families, the Ragsdales, were my people. And I saw for the first time pictures of my people out here in the desert, farming and making it life and working the land and building community, and everything just made sense. It was like, oh, it feels right here because we've been here. We've been here a long time. I loved learning about those original relationships of these black families that came here searching for freedom. They came to this land because they could feel it as well as being a place that would offer this space for them to grow without this fear and repression that they were experiencing in the South and in the East, really running for their lives from terror. Here felt like an opportunity to create something new, to create something fresh that was in relationship to the land. They came as farmers, and really farmed the land deeply. They became, some of the best artisanal farmers in the region, speaking Spanish, English, working together with the community. And so, I'm coming from this root, it's like, yes, it feels so good to have a sense of place. When I actually learned that, I was like, wow, I was able to settle and truly call this place home in another way. And so I think that is my question too for you as you have your stories of coming and settling in this place. What is it that actually builds that place for you, in you? What is it in the land that you connect to again and again, that calls home, that you can call home?
Yeah, I mean, the essay in the intro essay in the book is so beautiful, and it kind of ends with this line where you say, where we can be at home. And just that additive at, right? So it's a little different than saying we're home. It's just thinking about Marcus Garvey being like, we're never going to be home in this country, like we got to go back to Africa if we're going to find home. But that subtleness of like at home. And for me, I feel like I found my way there by learning about an insect, learning about the yucca moth that is the sole pollinator of our state flower, the yucca plant. And understanding that they have this gorgeous mutualistic relationship that is one of reciprocity and one of care, and realizing that there was like this relationship at work in the land that I had no idea that was going on, and it's like this power of this little insect. And so it's so exciting to see that in this show there's, these pollinators are given such great standing. And I feel like that is generally continuing to be able to, George Washington Carver also said that he wanted to be able to like name every plant, name every rock, to kind of call them by our name. And so for me, like the more I can actually understand like the Deltura plant and its magic, and to kind of build that sense of knowing, I feel like that's when home really landed for me.
Yeah, I would say for me, when it comes to identifying like that home and place, it's like what I referenced to earlier about like when you're here in New Mexico, there's like this healing that happens. And I feel like from the nods, people are just like, yeah, if you get what I'm talking about. And for me, it's like being at peace and at home in my body, and so that wherever I go out into the world, I'm just like, okay, like home is like within my body. So like whether or not like I know I'm not a heat person, but I'm just like, it's okay because I'm at peace with like where I am in this moment, like when I'm looking at the sky, when I'm looking at the clouds, and then I'm able to like see like what's happening in my environment. It's just like I know that I'm part of the overall environment. So I'm just like, yeah, I'm just at home. It's like as I'm like walking into the world, so I feel like all the spaces and places I'm in, like that's where home is in that moment.
I won't lie that I lean in hard in this position at the museum as being from New Mexico. And I say from New Mexico or raised in New Mexico, but never born in New Mexico, because in fact I was born in Missouri and moved here when I was 4. And being here are the only memories I have of that childhood, other than visits back home with my family over the summer. And it makes me think of this sign that we have in the gallery here in the permanent art collection that says, "Who is a real New Mexican?" What does it take to be a real New Mexican? Is it a number of years? Is it a certain understanding? Is it what is the Kool-Aid that you're drinking that finally you're convinced that you're a New Mexican? And I don't know the answer to that question exactly. I think for each of us it's a different answer, but Paula lived in New York for a number of years, and I think, I don't know if this is like you, but felt it to be somewhat stifling and alienating at the same time, and loved the sense of community and wide open vistas of New Mexico, and that eventually called me home again. But I don't think there's anyone that I met in New York who didn't know within 30 minutes that I was from New Mexico, and frequently found other people from New Mexico out in the world, even though there are only 2 million of us in the whole state. Somehow I kept finding them, and the metaphor I always think of when I find someone else from New Mexico out in the world is like rivers to the ocean. We just seem to kind of gravitate toward one another, and not true of my other friends out there. I remember speaking to friends from Germany and from Italy, hanging out with them on the subway platform, waiting for the train to come, and someone would walk by speaking their language, and I'm like, oh, you're paisanos, you're countrymen. Why don't you say hi? And they said, oh God, I would never do that. And I said, why not? And I said, that's embarrassing. I said, not for New Mexicans. But I wondered too, Paula, if you can speak to that escape of sorts from childhood in Chicago, school in New York, and practice all around the U.S., and then eventually settling here. What spoke to you creatively in those big cities, and what was no longer giving you that juice?
I appreciate that in the show, I feel like this kind of arc is actually on view. So there's a piece bricked out in the show that's I made with the Fabric Workshop and Museum in Philadelphia in 2010. And so I moved to Carrizozo in 2007. And it's really my mother who's here today who inspired the move to New Mexico. So she was kind of the trailblazer who left Chicago and came here, and I would spend as much time in New Mexico as I could when I was in college. I'd spend, how can I take off extra days to add a little thing on winter break or Thanksgiving break? And I think that there was really something about just being able to be an artist and not have to work a job if I can be so, kind of like that ability to do that was possible here in a way that it really wasn't in New York. And I was just talking with Jakia about how when I was in New York, I always felt like I should be somewhere other than where I was. Like I need to be networking, like I'm paying all this rent, and that actually was what was valued or what showed, your standing. It's rather than what you were making in the studio. And so, I fell in love with my spouse now, and I thought it was just like a summer fling or something, and then he's like, you could move here and rent this studio. I'm like, oh man, that's not gonna happen, you're, this has been great, I'm really into you, but, and then a year later, that's exactly what happened. And I do appreciate, and I feel like in a way the work itself on view, bricked out, like I was just talking about, is a self-portrait of me as a mural on a brick wall that's all made of fabric and industrial felt. And I'm kind of trying to make my way out of this space. And at the same time, there's all this nature around me. There's like a parakeet kind of that's made out of a poster that maybe got torn off the side of the building, and there's a little dandelion, growing in the cracks. And when I return to cities, I see that nature is a part of a city deeply. I don't want to make that kind of dichotomy, but that for me to have that kind of access and visceral relationship to the natural world was such a fuel for my artistic process.
I love that, and it's such a good segue into what I wanted to talk about too. There's this tenacity of nature, like you're saying, like this beautiful little dandelion growing out of the cracks of the bricks, And I think about time when I think about that, right? The big world, the New York world, the pressures of whatever, all of this outside, external, and I'll call it like colonial pressure of the world is constantly taking our time from us, is constantly calling our time product and pushing us to continue to produce it. Especially as Black bodies, our labor has always been metered and capitalized on and produced. That has been part of our story, right? And so the reclamation of time, of space, of the gentleness of the flower growing out of this crack, not paying attention to all of these other things, just pushing out. That subtlety is, I think, the thing that you're saying too. Here in New Mexico, we have this space and this access and this potential to be able to engage with time and rest and growing space in a different way. And I think you sent a beautiful writing from George Washington Carver's writings today that I loved so much, because it was speaking to the way that when we go into nature, when we take that time to go outside, we are given back that space of rest, that space of quiet, intimate looking, and those things are true gifts, really true gifts, especially from generations where you are not allowed even to daydream, let alone take time to smell a flower or pay attention to the subtlety of a leaf. So that's one of the things too that I just love about the work in this show, is that each of you as artists, each of the artists that are here, have and are really showing that time, that place of deep presencing, that is so valuable to us for the reclamation of our history itself. So I guess that is my question, kind of long introduced, is, where do you find those places of rest? How does rest come into your practice? How does the reflection or the land itself encourage and support that rest for you? Either one of you can start.
Okay, so when it comes to rest, most people who know me in my practice, like I'm always working on something, so I feel like it's a little bit, they're just like, what are you working on? I'm just like, oh, I'm doing fashion now, or I'm doing like works on paper right now, or I'm just like, or I'm curating a show. So for me, like I'm constantly in a state of like motion at all times, and so I just find rest in between. But since like I'm enjoying what it is that I'm doing, like I'm able to like take my time, and I'm always like honoring my pace and like moving with grace. And so I don't feel rushed when I'm doing things, because I know that like I also move with like a sense of intentionality as well. So it's not like I'm ever rushing. People are just like, oh, you're so busy. I'm like, oh, I'm never trying to like have that energy of busy or like that hustle and bustle, because I feel like that's where I would say that's where a lot of mistakes happen. That's where a lot of hesitation happens. That's where a lot of like inauthenticity happens. And so I feel like, yeah, I might have a lot on my plate, but this is what I asked for. And so I'm just like, now's the time for me to do it. So, and then I also love sleep. So sleep always finds me. So I'm never worried about it.
Yeah, I just really appreciate the way the works that you curated in the show do elicit close looking. I mean, and the title really is about taking a moment, taking a pause, and letting the act of awe, the appreciation of awe to kind of like take hold of us. And I think that so many of the works in the show give back to the act of looking, like that you're rewarded, you keep seeing more and more. I mean, I was just looking at the Ron Adams drawing with the frog, and there's like a little diagram of an atom is my take on it, like on the fingertip, yeah, and you're like, wow, so in a way, that's one thing I love about museums, is the way that they create this sort of sacred space of pause and of close looking, and how much looking is a way to have rest and to have presence. And then I would say this solar charged hot tub that my spouse installed in our studio, that is some seriously good rest. And it's a rain catchment system, so it's rainwater, and that's doing it for me, yeah.
Nikesha, I want to invite you to answer your own question. You've been on the road since September, and in the time that we've been collaborating, you've mostly been in a different time zone, and most recently in Sydney, where you were, 16 hours ahead, and one of the featured and highly applauded artists in the Sydney Biennale. Congratulations on that. Yeah. In addition, you were pursuing commissions from New York City Public Arts Commission, at Yale University, pursuing solo shows that you all will hear about in the coming months. You've been nonstop in motion, it feels like, for a long time, and now, as I understand it, you have time now to go home, back home to Taos. And I think about this with all of you, with your dynamic artistic practices spanning this entire country and now internationally. New Mexico is also not easy to get to. We have a international airport that goes goes to one location in Mexico. It's not easy to be an international artist from here, and so I was a bit surprised when we were talking in earlier conversations, Nikesha, that you said, "Oh, well, I'll always be in Taos. I love it here. I'm not going anywhere else." And to feel that conviction was really grounding and heartwarming, but a little bit surprising. And yeah, so I wonder if you can talk to where do you find rest, and and how, with your burgeoning career, do you still find peace in, a somewhat obscure part of New Mexico?
I love that so much, and thank you. Yeah, I have been all over the world these last months. My cat, like, I don't even know if she's gonna forgive me, man. She's found some other people she loves, but yeah, no, it's really true. I honestly don't think I could do even what I'm doing. Like, I couldn't be all over the world in all of these places if I didn't have Taos. Like, if I didn't have this land, this space here, like New Mexico. Like, every time I come home, it's the deepest battery charge you can get. I sleep in this, my bedroom has kind of windows all around. I happen to have this kind of tall bedroom on the second floor, which is very rare. It's rare to have 2 stories in New Mexico. You probably all realize that. But I was in this 2-story place, and I have windows all around. And, so every morning the sun just pours in. And, some people don't like that, like they'll have shutters or something. I can't. In New Mexico, I need the light. And the light just comes in, and there's something about this sun. There's something which we all know about the sky here, about the space here that fills you. And so for me, when I come home, it's that. I walk the land. I'm out in the sagebrush and rubbing it on my body. And, I need to cover myself again with the dirt and the dust and my old truck. And, I have to, be in the ground. And that's what fills me to be able to do everything else. There's no way I could survive New York if I didn't have Taos, period, at all. And I think that is the thing, like, rest comes for me in it really is the taking of that time, I don't know, like, I wish I had more rest when I'm, out there rolling around. Like, I try my hardest to find, any body of water anywhere. I'm like, can I get, I was even talking, I was like, is there a hotel that has, a pool here or something? I need to get into water. That helps me ground. But really coming home, being on the ground, being in the garden, working with the sunlight and the mountains here, make me feel alive. And in the same writings that you shared, George Washington Carver talks about the soil, and that being in relationship with the soil. The farmers, our ancestors that were toiling inside the earth, that lives inside our bodies. There is an intergenerational inheritance of a knowledge of the earth itself, of our hands in the ground. And when we're able to do that, put our hands and our feet in the ground, we regenerate something that is impossible to get anywhere else. We actually truly get filled. And so, yeah, that's for me, that place. I touch the ground here and I feel alive. And I guess I want to bounce the question back to the group of just when we think about soil, I know there are these layers of contention. There's a lot of Black folks I know in the world who actually kind of shy away from touching the earth. They're like, no, my ancestors did that, I'm not doing that. And that brings up the, Carol Finney book too, with black faces, white spaces. There's this sort of space where Black folks feel, even choose not to be outside, not to go out in nature. Nature is not actually a place for them, right? And so what is your relationships to that sort of tension as a Black person, when you confront that? Because I know all of us are like, yeah, let's get down in the dirt, but we do have people that aren't. I know, especially even traveling in Africa, there were folks that wouldn't get in the water. They wouldn't swim, and it's just, it's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, when I read Carolyn Finney's book, that it did kind of open something for me, right, it's okay to think of myself as a naturalist or somebody who has that relationship to the land. And again, George Washington Carver, he was a soil healer. The cotton monoculture had just decimated the land entirely, and he worked to mitigate the soil depletion. And I think that for me, healing some of the legacies of slavery is about literally healing the land and healing our relationship to it. It feels so fundamental to that constantly becoming process.
Yeah, when it comes to that tension that you're talking about, I haven't been averse to like being outside and like hands to dirt, feet to earth and everything like that because of my grandparents on my father's side. Like they had a very a beautiful, amazing like garden in their backyard, from like grapes and just like collard greens. And so like I'm used to seeing like food being grown. And so like I have that understanding of just food doesn't randomly just show up in a grocery store. But I know that that is a reality for like many of us that I feel like that is being dismantled right now. But when it comes to that tension, I feel like, everyone's on their own journey. And so like there's some validity to people's experiences when they're just like, yes, my ancestors did that, so I don't think they would want me to toil the same way. But then it's also the other side of it's like, I know my ancestors would want me to be able to like have a relationship with the earth, have a relationship to be able to have agency, to be able to feed myself when the time comes to, to be able to have that option and choice instead of just completely opting out. But then also like referring to the book, Carolyn Finney's book, there's like a whole nother side of this tension where you have people who are excited to like go out and be in the outdoors, but they're met with like hostility and apprehension and stuff like that. So they'll be minding their own business, going down a trail, and people are just like, well, why are you here? Someone's like following them, and you're just like, well, the outdoors is for everybody. And so there's like a huge conversation and healing that needs to happen nationwide, where it's just no, the outdoors are for all people. It's not just for one group of people. And what I really love and appreciate about New Mexico is this is one of the only few places where it's people of color are always outside. People are in people are walking alongside the Rio Grande, people are hiking, everyone's everywhere, and it's not oh, that's weird that you see this person's doing that, or oh, they shouldn't be outside. That doesn't really happen here. But when you do go to some of the northern states, in Oregon or in Washington, there is more of that apprehension that's even recent, where people are just no, I've been chased off of a trail just for me being black. So it's we have to be very aware of the people, people's apprehensions and tensions, to be out yeah, I want to go outside, but I'm not trying to be, accosted or harmed while I'm camping with my family. I don't want to be the next person that's on the news that's with a relationship with a tree, being my life in that way. So it's very valid that people are, that there's this tension, there's that resistance, because people's lives are on the line when they're outside.
Yeah, no, I just want to just bounce off of that because it's such an important point. And sorry, no, you get in, William. Just that, yeah, there's such a strong and direct connection to this this relationship of rest being a privilege, being reserved solely for for people who have time. Again, all of these things around value, right? So Black folks, we're not allotted time. We're not allotted, this, again, since our labor is often so capitalized on, right? Time is a luxury. Rest is a luxury. Recreation is a luxury. Art making is a luxury. All of these things are ultimately in this colonial system are reserved for, non-Black folks, right? It's been historically, right there, and that's where there's this tension that does make it seem like it's an aberration to see a Black person just chilling out for a long time, not working. Literally, it's what? You should be doing something at least, not just sitting there. How long are you gonna sit there? It's true, and it's ingrained in our social fabric in this way that is then dangerous, because people do get hostile when they see what feels like a Black person out of place.
Right, which comes to that notion or that stereotype that Black people are lazy, but it's just oh, is it lazy because I'm not doing what you want me to be doing? And so then that's so then they're just why do you have all this time? Because you're not doing what I want you to be doing, and that's something that, that could be like that moment where people are like, oh, there's this resistance within me that I see this Black person or this Black family like enjoying themselves, but that's because I believe that they should be doing something like that's to like my betterment. And so I feel like that's something that people need to also address within themselves. So that's like a personal thing.
Okay, yeah, pass the torch. Yeah, I was just going to add that when a curator, perhaps an imaginary curator, is thinking about launching a show of artists who deal with nature or deal with the environment, like, are they going to think about Black artists? Is that something where are we going to come into their purview or into their consciousness? And so, again, such a way in which I appreciate this exhibition.
I thought one of the more powerful passages in Dr. Finney's book was where she discusses the historical erasure of African Americans from posters advertising the national park system, and this is a place for you, and enjoy recreation. This is our country's greatest bounty and pride of the world. And you look at those posters after a century of advertisements, and I think 2 or 3% show people of color enjoying the outdoors there. And even in this moment, the national park system is also experiencing that same erasure, where any reference to African American hardship or slavery is being erased from those public boards. But thankfully, a judge, I think in the last 7 or 8 days, has reversed that and asked for all of those, all that history, all of those words to be placed back into public view, which I think is a wonderful step and a moment of protest to be celebrated. And I hope that in some way this exhibition is a moment of protest as well. Right now my head is blocking the NEA logo on the screen. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay that the NEA logo is on the screen, but also okay that it's being obscured, because that is one of the greatest achievements of my career, and it is tainted in this moment. And that's a really disappointing feeling, that I don't get to enjoy that as a curator. That is something that is hard-won and something that many curators and institutions seek out in order to be able to show a show like this. So I just really appreciate Nikesha for the conversations that we had in applying for that grant in the early days. This exhibition was hatched before the current administration, and it was only after it took up the reins that we had to prepare our application for that. And I really loved that conversation where we got to talk about what is the exhibition that we want to do. Are we talking about art by African Americans and depicting Black bodies and nature? What is exactly the flavor of the show and the contours of it that we're doing? And also, what are we willing to say about this in order to get it on the walls? Are we willing to blunt the edges? Maybe in this area, but not in this area. What language are we willing to tone down? Some of this, but not that. Just a constant negotiation, and always with the question to ourselves: at what point are we compromising our curatorial integrity? And at what point, and what are we comfortable living with so that we can actually tell these stories? And I choose, and I want to hear your reflections on this, but my personal orientation to it is I don't see this administration necessarily as giving us this award, but some noble, unnamed government worker in DC who saw the merits of what we're doing here and was able to push it through quickly and secretly, perhaps, before anyone else noticed. And once we post this conversation online, I guess all bets are off. But yeah, I like in the moment that we're using the government's money to do a show to support exactly the people, themes, and artwork that this administration is directly against.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. No, it was terrible, y'all. It was hard trying to really, truly, we had just, when we were trying to write this grant, we'd gotten the list from the government of all the words we couldn't say, which included Black,
Queer,
queer, climate, nature, environmentalism. These are all no-nos. You can't, literally every single word of our show was banned. And we couldn't say or talk about anything that had to do with that. We could not isolate that this was Black artists, period. We couldn't talk about that it was about the environment at all. And like, how do we do a show about Black artists in the environment without talking about those two things? So like working together with William, and really trying to understand how do we express what we're doing. And again, this thing that we've all, as Black people and historically have understood, like the way you have to code switch so drastically often to get what you need, right? And then also to like have that foundation of what it is we need. We needed this show. We need this show that is specifically and explicitly about Black artists and their vision and their ideas and their brilliance, when it comes to their relationship to the environment. And we had to create a new language to talk about that so that the system would be able to give us the funding that we needed. And I really do pray that more people like that unnamed administrator, is able to help move, these stories and this work forward, even in the midst of the oppression that we experience from these administrations.
I think it might be time to turn to Q&A. If anyone in the audience has questions or reflections that they want to offer to us, we've got another 10 minutes or so to hear from you.
Hands
so
up?
please.
Okay, yeah. Let me bring around my...
I think Elizabeth's going to come around with the microphone here. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you. So I am so grateful for this exhibition. I'm so grateful for the voices here. And I really appreciate what Nikesha was saying about I teach at UNM, and their students are always asking about what does resistance look like. And so it looks like pushing against these boundaries in very sometimes covert ways, and it looks like taking a chance and actually doing work that is right now risky, which shouldn't be risky, but it is risky. So thank you. There were so many gems here. The question that I have, I had a couple, but I'll just stay with one, which is, what do you think is sort of like the unique voice that Black people bring to this conversation on environment and place? And I ask that because of some of the things that you've already mentioned, which is that there's a lot of the idea that African Americans don't have because we're not from here, right? We are from here, but we're not, this isn't our original land, right? So we have to deal with that. We also have to deal with the fact that New Mexico is a very special place, right, in terms of how that conversation gets amplified. I think when we do think of Black people being in relationship to land, we think of it in the South. So, like my family's from Alabama, and I grew up in Detroit. So yeah, so I was just wondering, like, what is the unique voice that Black people bring to this? Because we're thinking about ongoing systems of oppression, ongoing systems of violence, ongoing systems of racial violence, and how that is continuously sort of amplified. So what is it that's unique about the African American voice in this?
I think I'll take this one. No.
That was fantastic. That was great. No, I think it's really what you just said about how there are like these multiple realities and layers that we're existing in, right? And so I feel like that's the uniqueness to it, that the unique voice and perspective. So like we're able to talk about when it comes to climate, like how it impacts health, like how it impacts like just all the things, like everything from like food to like breathing to just like being, it's just like, I don't know, I just feel like we have that perspective because we're living with these multiple systems of oppression and these different layers that we're able to speak to all these things. And so we're also like a very community-oriented people, so we're not just gonna think about ourselves, we're gonna think about others. And so like other people are always being included in the results and like the benefits of like what we're gonna be like working towards. So when it comes to like policy, all the things, I just feel like we're able to like tackle it on those different levels.
Yeah, amen. Absolutely. I think that it's that multiplicity of viewpoints and perspectives, and then also being in relation. Like, and the works in the show, I think, answer this question in a way. Like I was talking about how many figures there are in it, and that even if you just kind of trace the way the different artists like use the horizon line or think about the horizon line, and that there's like multiple horizon lines, or in your piece, The Arc of Return, like the horizon line is implied. It's like the boat is resting on an imagined sea that we have to feel, and that we can take all that multiplicity of viewpoints and perspectives and show them. We're not just like, here's the vista. We're like, I mean, Maurice there's a horizon line in the pants of one of the figures, and then there's the horizon line in the back, and there's people in relationship, or Karsten's work with the road, and the perspective is literally a part of the way in which it gives you perspective, like that there isn't this one way of being, that we hold multitudes and we hold our bodies as a part of the natural world. I think that's, yeah.
I love that so much, and that's exactly also like the pieces I'm talking about too, or thinking about too. I think about Afrofuturism. And even if all of these artists aren't like specifically saying they're working in Afrofuturist ways, I see that in, when I think of Afrofuturism, I think of it as a mindset and a space that is cut off, or not cut off, but free of time, right? That, there was a severance in a way in our generational experience as descendants of enslavement, where at one point we have been severed from the continuity of our storytelling, of our land relationships, of our community relationships from Africa. But that severance is not, in essence, an absence, right? That severance created this multiplicity of capacity for being able to experience time. So we were cut off from a continuity of time and then born into this capacity to experience past, present, future, sort of all at once. And time and place and land and connection, we can pick and choose. And I think that a lot of the artists really are actively engaging with that. Maurice Burns is a great example. He's calling on images from North Africa to the plains and indigenous relationships, to here in the Southwest, to imagined futures and imagined pasts all together. And there's a quality of that in everyone's work. Paula, in your work, as you're tracing the solstices, and we're seeing this beautiful black figure wrapped in this timeless cloak. All of this materiality, physically, environmentally, time-based, all of it together in communication and relationship, I think is a unique aspect that African American people bring, that Black people here bring, that is not shared among all cultures. That capacity to say yes this, and yes that, and yes this. It's jazz. It's that piecing together and creating something wholly new that can only exist from this reclamation of the severance of our history.
Yeah, thank you. And I mean, your piece, the piece that's on the kind of pedestal that charts the migration patterns of like multiple creatures, and that perspective of like looking down and seeing the movement like you're talking about is so powerful in that piece.
Who's next?
I don't have a question, I have an observation. I was born here in Albuquerque, and I think the reason why we're so connected with the land is because if you look up north, you will see Gaia there. It's our mother. We are living on Mother Earth. And I think it's really significant that we are going back to the earth. I mean, like, I have a food forest, and I have a pollinator's garden in my front yard. I live here in the city, but it's brought back birds that I haven't seen since I was a child, and insects. Just to get back to the earth and to be connected with it is what brings us back to to New Mexico, and that's why we love it so much.
I had a question, and then it multiplied into many questions, and then it fragmented into even more questions. And so the only statement I wanted to make basically is I wanted to say how much I appreciated each one of you speaking about different aspects of my experience of living in New Mexico. When you said that you were in New York and you heard someone speaking and you knew that it was from New Mexico, I also had that experience. I also remember being in I also remember being at the Denver Biological Park and seeing just a small little expanse of land, and it just brought back all of what I feel about New Mexico, the land and the environment, the plants, the insects, but just the feeling of the terrain, and how when I was living in different urban areas, I didn't have that experience. The being divorced from the land as an African American, I realized I had to go back to the land, so I have a planter's garden. But I know the experience of having to have fought through to get to the place where I could reclaim my love of land and my love of agriculture, my love of innate science and innate biological botanical understanding, and familiarizing myself with insects are not the enemy. I may not like what you're doing to my sunflower plants, but you're not the enemy. And what you said about the wilderness, I remember people asking me why didn't I want to go out into the wilderness, go on hikes and things like that. And I realized I always went with my white friends, but I never psychologically wondered or questioned why I did that. And I realized why I did it was because it was an extra layer of safety. And I just appreciate everything that each one of you shared, because it has been my experience of this place, and it's been the reason why, even though I planned on being here only 2 years, I've been here almost 32 years, because it's very difficult when you find a place that you can love, and loves you back. It's very difficult to let go or to release. And I also, like you, suspect that I have ancestors that passed through here and might have stayed, but it was lost from the records. So I want to thank all of you.
Thank you so much for sharing all of yourselves in the exhibit and here in this speech today, or not speech, but talk. My question is, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I kind of am by asking you. If you don't feel comfortable, that's absolutely fine. But what can I do, or anybody else around me who is interested, do as an actionable step that would, in your experiences, actually continue or create welcoming places in New Mexico, in Albuquerque, for Black people and all people?
Well, I would say the first thing is say hi. Yeah, I feel like saying hi. I know that sounds like really weird, but it's like totally like my best friend, like she's totally one with the outdoors. She's a Black woman, and she's like, Jakia, let's go on this hike. I'm like, how long is it? She's like, maybe 10 miles. I'm just like, I don't know, but we'll go. And so, and I was like, coming like full circle. She's like, up, and I was like, I don't know, but we'll go ahead and do it. And but usually it's like really just like, you know, like the tensions are low when like the people who aren't Black who are on the trail, like they say hi and they actually ask us how we're doing instead of them just like, you know, totally avoiding us or just like acting like we're not there. So like it is actually more like, oh, okay, like they see me as a person, or they're just like, oh my gosh, like this is coming up there, so you should check that out. And we're just like, thanks, we saw this over there, and they're just like, oh, great. So just like, you know, be welcoming like in that space and not look at them like, oh, you shouldn't be here. So I feel like that's really just say hi and be kind.
Yeah, I guess that a lot of it is what also you're saying, Jakia, like what does it mean to make space, you know, truly to make space. Somebody told me recently that that's something that my art does, you know, that my art makes space for people and makes space for people to feel and experience and to kind of open up something. And I've thought a lot about that. It's like, how do I do that? What is that you do? And so I think that is a really great question you're asking, right? Like what is it? Because it's like actionable. Often we think of that like as like, you know, an outside thing, but I think it really comes from an inside thing. I think that each of us have to truly interrogate our internal relationships, first to ourselves, to our environment, to the land, to our relationship with each other and the outside world, but then also the inherent biases that come up in us, you know, when we are in these relationship spaces. So like really truly feeling like what does it feel like or look like when I'm outside and I see like a Black family walking down the trail, or even just on the street. Like, is there something that happens in your body when that happens? Is there something in you that unconsciously flinches or does something? Listen, be honest about that. If that comes up in you, it's really something to sit with, to think about, to interrogate, and to try and soften the edges around and look at and begin to find those places of the mirroring in yourself. Like what is it in you that you can see in this family or in these people or in this place, right? It's a really important work that not a lot of us do. That real, because you can immediately be like, oh, that doesn't happen to me. I'm not racist, or I don't have any of those feelings. I love everybody. Like everybody in this room will be like, I love everybody. And it's true. And there's probably some stuff in there that is not yours, or that has come from your society that is there that you have not looked at too. And so I think it really comes down to that, because you don't always think you're going to be the one to, have those experiences, but they come up. They come up, right? If you're out there alone walking in the woods and you see a Black man walking down the trail, do you get afraid? Do you? If you do, interrogate that, because there is no reason to be afraid. None at all. And if it comes up at all, that's really on you, right? And so this is something that I would say, if you want to create a space that is truly welcoming, do that work. And once that work is done, it will naturally make the space where you become a more welcoming person, because you naturally emanate that sense of softness, joy, curiosity, love, and tenderness that is the natural way that we want to relate to each other as humans.
I think we have one final question, please.
Hi. As somebody who spent her middle school and high school years here in New Mexico, in Las Vegas, I have spaces that I've claimed. And so even though I left for a good 20 years or so, the Gallinas River and the hot springs outside of Montezuma are mine. Do you all have places that you have equally claimed?
So the question is, the questioner said that they have named places as a way to connect to the environment, and asking if we had any spaces that we've named. And what comes up for me is this Mud Springs. It's actually private property, although we've gotten a go-ahead from the people who own it. But it's this aurora that fills with water, and we go hang out and get naked and get all muddied up and walk around. So, and then just to follow up on the previous question, I do really feel like seeing the exhibition, bringing your friends to see the show, and spending deep time looking with the work. I mean, these artists have made this work because the work itself is what engenders the world that we want to live in. And so, and especially like Nikesha's saying, like if you seek out any piece that makes you uncomfortable or that you have a ton of questions with, to really hold space with that work.
Places you've named?
I don't walk around like saying like, oh, I own this. So I have a hard time. Oh, yeah. I don't really walk around saying like, oh, this is mine. I don't do that. I would say there are places that I frequent that I'm just like, oh, this is nice. And so I would say like Ojo Caliente, like outside of Taos. I would say my house. So I feel like, I was like, I do own that. So I was like, I can't say that. And then maybe just like when I'm able to like walk along the Rio Grande. But yeah, I feel like those are places, spaces.
I guess, yeah, I love the question and that space that I feel coming from the question in your heart of being like, this is mine. Like that being able to take a sense of agency over land and over a place. And I think for myself, it's always soft. Like the idea of ownership is something I think I'm trying to dissolve overall. But the sense of agency is something I'm trying to hold on to, right? And so this sense that I belong in a place is the thing that like makes me feel like I could say it's mine, is that I belong there. I don't own it, but I belong there. And there's something different in that for me, right? So when I'm walking, along the Rio Grande and the gorge in New Mexico, or in Taos, where I'm from, which I've walked 1,000 times, in my life. When I walk that land and I go around those corners that I know and that little spot that I always stop and sit, or, that particular sagebrush in that corner, those places, I do feel like I'm returning to an old friend. I'm returning to a place that welcomes me as much as I welcome it, right? And so those are the places that I would, say that I have claimed, but not really. It's, in a way, they've claimed me, and I return to them as a child and as a guest and as a friend again and again.
I think we're, yeah. That's a great place to wrap. No, I think we are out of time. If I may have your permission to wrap us up and conclude this event, I appreciate that. I do want to just take a final moment here to acknowledge that there are 9 tremendous artists in this show, 3 of whom are not with us anymore. Mr. Rain Whit-Pritchett, Mr. Maurice Burns, and Mr. Ron Adams, all passed away in 18 months prior to this exhibition opening. In the time that we've been planning this exhibition, we have lost all 3. I spent too long researching, plucking up the courage, wanting to have something meaningful to say to these individuals before I called them, and no longer had the opportunity to do so. So I did not get to meet them, and I'm very regretful of that fact. At the same time, I'm very joyful that I got to meet and get to know so well the 6 others that are in this show, all of whom are in this room with us today. So I hope that you will join me in applauding the work of Noah Burnett, Karsten Creighton, Jakia Mitchell-Edwards.
Go ahead and stand up if you
Nikesha Breeze, Paula Wilson,
raise your
and
hand.
Jakia Fuller.
Yay, yeah, woo, Karsten, yes. And no, wherever you are. And Jackie. Yes, Jackie. Yes.
Take a bow.
Yes, thank you. Brilliant.
And yeah, Noah in the back spent 6 days in Gallery 7 here painting a mural last week. when you see it, if you haven't seen it yet, you will be astounded that it only took 6 days. And as we file out here, and again, we're going to be setting up for a book signing out here. All 4 of us are invited if you two would also like to participate. No pressure. Also, you can just enjoy the show, and it can just be Nikesha and me. This is the job that we fulfill. But as you're filing out, and if you want to come meet us out there, go back into the show, we're going to put up on the screen a time lapse of Noah creating his mural over those 6 days. It's going to look like one day because he, for continuity's sake, wore the same jersey,
Yeah, right? You're like, hey.
his uniform for painting the entire time. So it looks like just this burst of activity that we're so proud to be able to host. And someone always asks, is it going to remain up after the show? No, it will not. If you cut through that wall and we're able to see the stratigraphy of all the paint that has built up from mural after mural after mural, it's a beautiful thing, and all the more beautiful Noah's creation here because it is temporary. So please enjoy it now, and thank you all for coming out to join us today.
Thank you.